All set? Okay, call the meeting of the Arlington Finance Committee to order. The first order of business is the minutes. Do I have corrections on the minutes? Comments? Anybody? Okay, Peter, I think at this meeting, everybody was there.
Yes, it
That's
says
right.
number.
So did you mark?
There's three at large.
I don't have for John, Alan, or Bill.
Yeah, I'll fix that, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, it's over there. It's over on here.
What was the 100 buckets down under education, the bottom?
That's what they call them.
Breaks down each of the budget drivers that Mason listed into more than 100 buckets.
He broke down each of the subjects into many smaller ones.
Okay,
Affectionately known as buckets.
buckets. Okay, and then under item 3, 6th line continues to be poor.
Yes?
Okay, I'd cross off poor and say below average. Poor is a value term. Below average is a description. Okay, are there any other corrections on the minutes? Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the minutes as corrected. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Today, we asked the Arlington Council
Commission.
Commission, that's right, your commission, on arts and culture to come before us. So if you could, we got a few new people, so if you could introduce yourselves and then please go walk us through the budget.
Hi, so I'm Stephanie Marlin Curiel. I'm co-chair of the commission.
I'm Adria Arch. I'm also co-chair.
And we've had an eventful year. Although we are only been in existence, have been activated, I should say, since 2013. We have a long story, which I'm not going to give you all the details of, except upon request, only to say that it's been a very eventful and productive year. Our most notable achievements, have been that we did a cultural plan, a comprehensive cultural plan, arts and culture action plan for the town with the Department of Planning and Community Development. And we also initiated the cultural district process and have gotten a designation of cultural district from the Massachusetts Cultural Council. And with that cultural plan, yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
With that cultural plan, we did, it came with an organizational plan too, and so it was in our mind and also in all of your minds the last time we met that we should reorganize all the arts and culture entities under one umbrella, and that is what we have spent a good part of the year doing, some of last year and a bit the beginning of this year, I should say. And we also, our other big project was the comprehensive website, which I don't know, have any of you seen it? artsarlington.org. Okay, great. If you haven't yet seen our website, please take a look at it, since you did help support it, for which we are very grateful. And so this year we've really been about reorganizing into that organization, that one umbrella. And so as you may have seen, I don't know if any of you have seen our annual report, but essentially we have a core committee of 13 members, and we have some, we really were very thoughtful working with Doug Heim on a new bylaw and at the recommendation of our cultural plan about how that committee should be composed. So it includes representatives, first of all, of each of the different subcommittees, or we call them action committees. Programs and festivals has a representative, marketing has a representative, public art, grants, which is the former Arlington Cultural Council, fundraising, and the Cultural District Managing Partnership. In addition to that, we have a representative from the nonprofit arts community, we have a representative from the business community, a representative from this appointed by the school committee, and a representative of working artists, and 3 at-large members. And then we also have a non-voting member, which is a liaison from the arts and from the planning department, which is usually Allie Carter. And that's really where we are today, I would say. The rest of it is sort of connected with the budget as far as some of our activities, so I'll just open it to your questions.
Okay. Well, we do open it up. Yes, questions? Annie?
Okay, so I'm looking at your FY20 budget here, correct?
Yes.
It's expenses at the top and income at the bottom.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're expecting to expend $40,000 and you're expecting to make $14,700.
Yeah.
So what is your income request from us?
The $40,000.
Why do you need more money than you're going to spend?
Oh, no. You're right. You're right. That should have been an expenditure that includes the projected income. You're quite right about that.
What would you be planning to spend the projected income
Yes.
on, if not these items?
Right.
in
The
your budget?
projected income generally goes to public art. Most of that money is made by public art, and so most of it goes to fund public art projects. We have a line item for public art in our budget.
Mhm.
That's for our curator, our public art curator. We have a professional public art curator, which helps us keep the quality high and the output strong. And so actually you have an example for those of you who are new to the committee or just new to what's been going on in town. That's why we gave you this. This is an example of the work that's going to be done this spring by our public art curator.
Okay, so let me just ask one more clarifying question then. Your assumption going forward from this year and into the foreseeable future is $40,000 of support from the town, and then all of the money that you earn will be invested in the public art itself.
Well, generally,
Generally
yes,
speaking,
although I think that there are other kinds of things, like, for example, some festivals, which may or may not be called public art too, they're sort of, but some festivals and perhaps, staff, or I shouldn't say staff, consultants, there are other needs that we have that we may start fundraising for, and we do hope that in the future, like for example, this year, because of the amazing opportunity that the VRT project gave us, which was the bus rapid transit pilot, we were able to get a Bar Foundation grant for $37,000 to do art in the bus shelters, which was amazing, which bumped up our income to over $50,000 this year. We hope some other opportunities like that will come up again in the future. In that case, all of the money went to the bus shelters and the murals that were part of that project, like the ZA mural and the Fox mural.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to clarify for us, because this was our question, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but this was the reason that we wanted you to come and explain your request, was that our assumption, we had not been assuming that you were expecting $40,000 of investment from the town year over year going forward.
Oh, really?
My understanding was last year's conversation was that you were going to seek other sources of income so we could reduce that investment.
Oh, well,
Al,
yeah.
tell me I'm wrong.
From our understanding, I don't know, Alan, were you just addressed? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we were hoping to see our input, or the amount of money we had to appropriate go down.
Oh, okay, that wasn't our understanding. I think
Yeah,
our
we-
understanding was that we weren't to ask you for any more.
More. Yeah.
That we were to, as we grow, start finding other sources of income, which I think that we have. I mean, this year we've gotten $52,000 in income, yet still spent the $40,000, and that's going to be, that is our vision going forward. I mean, without that, that's going to be a lot more burden of fundraising for us. I mean, very difficult. I mean, as it is, we really need some paid help.
Yeah.
And
It's getting
that's
too
what
big.
we're hoping to start investing some of our money into.
Yeah.
Okay.
Charlie?
Yeah, so, I remember when this Arts Commission was first raised, I think it was introduced at town meeting by Mrs. Howard, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, years ago.
And town manager Chapdelaine. And I asked the question at town meeting, was there any money going to be involved in this? And the answer was no, at the time. And because I was concerned about spending town money on art, because art is a very subjective thing. One person's art is another person's something else. Graffiti, maybe, yeah, thank you. And I think the town has a lot of other priorities besides picking favorite artists. And I say that at great risk because my wife tends to be an artist, so but I still feel that way.
You can stay over at my house tonight, Charlie.
Thank you. And I second Al's position. We were totally under the impression last year that this was a one-time request, that you were going to hire this consultant. The consultant was going to help you organize to raise money, and this wasn't going to be an ongoing cost. So I guess I'm personally just not in favor of institutionalizing amongst various boards and commissions expenditures like these that are not part of the what I would call the core mission of the town, which is education, public safety, maintaining the public roads and buildings. These are very. I'm not saying that they're not socially valuable, but they're not central to the town. And when we're worried about whether we have to increase the educational budget to hire teachers, or whether we have enough cops on the street, or we have too many potholes, which we do, I think this is not a priority to me. in my mind.
John?
I guess my response to that would be, we fund many things that don't fit within your definition of the core services. So it's just a matter, as you say, it's a matter of taste and priorities.
Well, right now we should be focusing on questions on the budget. And are there any additional questions on the budget? Mary Margaret and then Alan.
Well, I just wanted to ask that question that was brought up before y'all came, wasn't the consultant supposed to get her, whatever we'd spend on her would come back to you?
She did.
as a grant?
52 over that money.
Okay.
52,000 she brought in
Alright.
in grants and fundraising. Absolutely.
So if you have 52,000, then I guess the confusion is why you still need another 4.
No, that all went to public art, and we're not using the town money for the public art. By the way, that is all the fundraising that she did for that. The money that we're asking for you is to support the festivals and programs and the marketing and the website, which brings people to town and brings elevates Arlington as this arts and culture mecca, which it always has been since the 20s.
We also see the arts and culture to be very closely tied to economic development.
Yes,
and I think-
absolutely.
And the town sees it that way too. That's why Ally Carter has been working so closely with us, and Jenny Reed from the planning department.
Okay, Alan?
So the town appropriated $40,000 last year and raised $52,000, so it was $92,000 total revenue. Was that all spent, or do you have money?
That's all spent.
That's all spent?
I mean, it's all projected to be spent by June.
Okay. The website's very nice. How many? What's the traffic? How many hits are you getting on that?
Okay. So this is a total. So I guess it has 1,500 users right now. 81.2% are new, and 18% are returning, etc. I mean, I have
What do you
different
mean by user? 1,500? That's per day, or
per. Well, no.
over the life of the website?
Well, it's between December 7th and March 18th. So 3-month span.
months,
So
okay,
in the
about-
beginning, first 3 months, we had 1,200. In the second 3 months, we had 1,500.
Yeah, it's like 500 a month, 15 a day.
It's about, it's on average, it's around 600 a month, actually, on
Okay.
about.
I guess, something we talked about last year, we referred to the initial funding as seed capital to build it up, and talking about the website as being a revenue generator. That's a little low traffic, but at some point, I'm hoping that there'd be enough interest in the website that sponsors would be knocking down the door to start sponsoring.
That's
The
what we're
Us
website should be a
too.
revenue
Yeah.
generator.
Us too.
We're totally
Yeah,
hoping
which
that.
is-
Either through advertising and sponsorship, and sponsorship you have more control over.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So our marketing committee is
Yeah.
just coming up to speed. These people just started in September, so they've formulated a very professional marketing plan, and that's our next thing that we're going to see happen.
I mean, I think really soon you should put some sponsorship opportunities on the website,
Yes.
so when people look at it and say, but you gotta get it above 30.
Yeah,
More
So-
traffic first,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
We're working on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Grant?
Actually, Alan and sort of hit my question. I noticed there's 10,000 to maintenance, and I was wondering about the metrics. Any chance of reducing, the traffic doesn't, awful lot of money going to this particular website, wondering about the traffic and how effective the website is and whatever the mission was to build it. And how do you know that? But I think, Alan, you pretty much answered the measurement part. Is there a plan?
Absolutely. Well, so our marketing committee is working on that as we speak, and we're ready to launch all kinds of things to get more and more people to look at it. So it's just came out in September.
You know, we're greasing. It took a little longer than we had hoped as far as getting people up to speed, let alone the website up to speed as far as its traffic and its visibility. But we are investing. That's what our marketing budget is going toward. You know, investing in the visibility of the Arts Arlington logo, just awareness building, but also social media and online advertising, and just more news stories in general. You know, it's just a lot of work generating all that content, but we're doing it, and we're going to be increasing that, especially now as a big season is coming up, and there's so many new programs coming in addition to wonderful favorites like Porch Fest, etc.
Still, I'm not done, I guess. So you said there's going to be a plan, or there is a plan? I mean, I asked you if there is a plan. You said they're working on that now. So,
Right.
well, which isn't?
Our marketing committee, which just began in September to just know about what we did, is working right now. Actually, they have a plan, and they're going to start rolling it out in the spring.
I'm still confused. There is one,
Yes, there is a plan.
or they're
Yeah.
working on one?
Both. There is a plan. They're working on it.
They're working on implementing it?
Yes.
In this plan, is there a way to address, you talked about the content,
Yeah.
how time-consuming it is, and that was brought up earlier. too.
Yes.
Last year. It
Yes.
was brought up about how difficult it is to maintain that. and
Yeah.
such. So what's the plan for maintaining it going forward?
We have a monthly newsletter that goes out to all the businesses and arts organizations that reminds people to submit their events and their news. I mean, their events they've been doing for the most part. As you've seen our calendar, we are trying to up that participation even more. But the calendar is pretty comprehensive and is pretty full. And as far as the news stories, that's something we're still training them to do and let them know, we actually will put this up and you only need to write 2 paragraphs. You don't need to write a full in-depth feature. So we're still training, people to do that. But in the meantime, we and our marketing department is now doing some of the story content, and Adria's been writing a lot, and I am sometimes, as we know things so that we can keep up with the news. But we are coming up with a plan for that story generation. And again, we may need some help along the way.
Well, that's actually the point. It would make your life easier if you had a maintenance plan, and that doesn't mean that it would be how stuff gets on the site, how it stays on the site, and that would relieve you the burden of doing that. So I wasn't hearing that, but I'm fine.
We do have a webmaster, and it's just that, you know, she's been updating things but not creating the content herself. So we have, you know, the marketing department committee has been the content creators. We expected it to be a little different, but it's a matter of personnel.
Is the plan to have the webmaster do the content?
No, well, not the current one, but we are going to be looking at revamping that position.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Jane, did you have a question? Annie?
So when you apply for grants, like the Bar Foundation grant, do you include any money for overhead in those grants?
This is what our public art curator does. She writes the proposals. Sometimes she does. Generally, she's just really asking for commissions for the artists.
Okay.
Yeah, she doesn't usually include money for herself.
No, we would
Yeah.
like her to start doing that. We've encouraged her to do that, but, you know, I think she will now in the future, but
I mean,
She
usually
hasn't been.
an organization like the Bar Foundation would expect that there's a 10 or 15% part of the budget
Right.
is overhead
Right.
for the organization applying for the grant, that it's not all going to art. That's one way to supplement your fundraising.
right.
So I actually have a question for you, Al, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time to do it or not now, but my understanding is that when we put together $40,000 last year, we did it by taking from some of the committees we were rolling into this commission?
Yes, basically at one point, we were getting flooded with
Right.
different groups involved in this.
Yeah.
And, hey, you know, we don't, our job is not to evaluate various proposals for art. So the Finance Committee decided that the Arts and Culture Commission was a duly authorized body of the town meeting. They had created them, I think they're in the bylaws. And so basically, we took all those groups and put them under them, and then say, don't come to us, go to them.
Okay.
So one thing just pops out, the Poet Laureate, for example. Their
Right.
stipend is in this budget. And if you want to spend more money in Public Works but less on this, then they have to make that decision. So that's the whole logic behind it.
Okay, but were all the pots of money that we had been requested that we rolled together to come to $40,000, were they money that was already in the budget, just distributed elsewhere?
No, they were all pretty much new requests.
Okay.
And we ended up giving them a little bit more, the total pot was a little bit bigger, not a huge amount, but a little bit bigger than all of the individual requests put together.
Requests.
That's right.
And those individual requests were not for ongoing committees, they were for individual projects, or do you remember?
I
It was mixed. It was-
It was a
Yeah.
mix?
probably. Okay, is there any other questions for the Arts and Culture
I have a
Commission?
question.
Peter?
Ladies, I'm wondering about the expenditure for Town Day last year, for this current year. You spent 10 times as much as you budgeted, but then you upped your budget this year. So what happened there?
The reason that we did that is we had decided that what we really have done this year, it was coincidental with the website launch. And so we decided to put all our energy into Town Day, into launching the website, which meant showing the website, which means we had to rent a monitor, we had to rent equipment, and so we decided, okay, that's marketing. We're going to move some out of our marketing budget to spend that on Town Day this year as a marketing expense. Even though since we had a line item for Town Day, we just put it over there.
Okay, are there any other questions for the commission? Darryl?
I noticed the line item for the public art and community engagement specialist was in the budget last year, it's in the budget this year.
Yeah,
Is this something you anticipate being a consistent presence?
yes.
Yes.
It's essential. This is not a job for volunteers, absolutely not.
Right. And she brings in money, and this, I mean, for a consultant, you would never find one for that price.
No,
anywhere
she's
else.
really, she loves doing what she's doing, and we're really very, very lucky to have one of the premier public art consultants in the state, actually.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions? Alan?
We're just going back to the economic development. You know, as you say, it's not a job for amateurs and volunteers.
It's not.
And it's tied to economic development. I'm just wondering why this shouldn't be under the, part of the planning economic development budget as a line item. Maybe it shouldn't be a committee at all, maybe it should be, staffed.
That's a great question.
It's a great
we,
question.
We agree with you, but I mean,
Yeah.
I think last year the feeling was actually to take it out of, we did put the consultant in the planning department budget, but then, it
think
was
you
the
took it
recommendation
out.
of this committee to see all the
Yeah,
arts
we took it
expenses
back out.
together, because there were more arts expenses at
Well,
the
that's
time.
good,
There was
because we
public
thought
art
it
and
would be a
everything.
one-time thing, a seed capital to develop it. But if it's gonna be an ongoing expense, then that sounds more like a staff position.
Okay.
And tied to economic development, because if it's an economic development
Yeah.
driver, then there should be a tie.
Yeah.
Charlie?
Yeah, I guess if this economic development specialist is so good, how come that person is not raising money to pay for the position? Well, you're asking the town for the money.
Because she honestly, she says that she does not fundraise, or that she doesn't want to fundraise, but she always does, but for the projects. She's not a fundraiser. That's not what she's paid for. Within her $15,000, she is a curator, and she doesn't want extra money to fundraise, and that's what it would take. She can't possibly fundraise her own position on top of all the artist fees and everything else that she does fundraise for.
Well, I think that's where the covering administrative costs comes in. Almost all the grants the town gets, especially from the federal or the state government, there's a certain percentage in there for overhead, whether it's 5% or something like that, for administrative costs, and then the town uses that for fund positions and
We'll
fund.
definitely take that under advice, and we'll definitely let her know about that should another large opportunity like the Bar Foundation come along. But generally, as you see, these are all small donations, and many of them are, like we say, donations. They're house parties, they're from Charitable Where You Sit, they're from small grants from the Arlington Cultural Council or the MCC. They're just adding up. So it's those kinds of fundraising. It's not possible in those funds, but should another opportunity like the Bar Foundation come in there, we will definitely advise her to put that in,
Okay,
for sure.
thank you. Are there any other questions before Carolyn?
I'm just confused by the title budgeted versus rev budget. What is that? What are those?
There's the budget, and then there's the revised budget, which simply means it shows how we've, shifted the budget in that line item based on needs of other line items. It's all. It was partly for us, but I thought you might be curious too.
So that shows that within FY19?
It's all within FY19.
All within, okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
Charlie?
The question I have here is, in the fiscal 2020 budget, how come you have this projected income, but it doesn't seem to be offsetting the projected expense? So
I
what
think
is the
once
projected
again,
income?
did I make another mistake and not put
What is the projected income being used for? You're showing it as coming from poster sales and director list, but shouldn't it be offsetting something in the $40,000?
No, it should really be that the total budget we'll spend would be more like 55. Again, most of our budget that's raised is raised for public art projects. So our hope is that we would raise even more to have some paid staff. But for now, all these kinds of incomes that you see, they're all connected to public art fundraisers.
Okay, I don't want to discuss this now, I want to answer
Yeah.
questions. John?
Clarifying question, so is it, what you're showing here is the budget for the appropriation from the town, and then you've got, you have another budget for what you're gonna spend on public art, which will be funded from this other income, from the projected income?
Yes, that's basically right. So, I mean, this is still, I guess, a holdover. Maybe we haven't quite been used to combining these budgets exactly yet, because the public art budget used to always be separate and really was used only on public art projects. And so that's why we sort of, in showing you income, that's really, I mean, the public art budget really was the only one that had income. We never had any income. That may change now that we have a fundraising committee, and they are, this year they're starting, starting small. They're just starting with a poster design and, sales of some posters that will start in June, and we'll see how that goes. But it's not going to be big money, so that's just a start. But we will start activating them a little bit more, or partly relieving our consultant from some fundraising too for the public art.
Okay, anybody else, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming, we really
You're
appreciate it, and all the
Yep.
good work you do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, a couple of things. Alan, Charlie, and I met with the Long Range Planning Commission committee, and came to a consensus there to increase the enrollment to 50% per pupil. So everybody was agreed upon that, which is what we had voted. And then the selectmen put their plan on the plate for us. I don't think there was any disagreement with the general part, but this is the plan. I emailed it to you. It's a draft fiscal year 20 override commitments. So it's got one, which is the basic stuff that we had agreed upon, that's in the past years, the 2.5%, 3.5% annually, et cetera, et cetera. The second part is the 50% per pupil, the growth factor. And then it goes into the override, which is Build Arlington's Future, 4, how to minimize impacts on taxpayers, 5, protect future shocks. So we're not discussing this today, but we will be discussing this on Wednesday. Dan Dunn, the chairman of the selectmen, will be here to review this whole thing with you, and we'll be looking for support from the finance committee for this override plan. Remember, the override, you can see the details there and all that, a lot of material that I emailed out to you last Friday, and then of course on the same ballot is going to be the debt exclusion for the high school. So it's a big issue. I urge you all to thoroughly review this for Wednesday on that.
I took a quick look at that. I just couldn't recall, is there an actual override amount on there, or is that something that Dan's going to be talking about on Wednesday?
Yeah, the long range plan, there's a number.
It looks like the school override for 20 was 600,000, and the town age-friendly was 250,000. But they'll have all the details for you. So, Alan, Charlie, do you remember how much the proposed override was for?
$6 million, right?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry?
it was
$6 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in the long range plan, if I can find it.
That's right. It was maybe
Sandy probably
5.6
knows.
million.
5.6.
All right, here we go. $5.6 million.
Thank you.
Great. Okay,
Is that for the schools, or is that the whole thing?
that's the whole thing. So it's both the schools and the age-friendly. And there was a whole bunch of information on age-friendly. So it's for the top of the age group and the bottom of the age group. Not quite sure if that's a value phrase, but whatever. Sandy, while we have this fresh in our minds, okay, so they're requesting $40,000. This is the Arts Council Commission. I don't think we were expecting them to raise $40,000 and wipe this out, but I think we were expecting them to start raising money that we'd be able to reduce what we were appropriating, especially looking to the rather large override and debt exclusion that we're putting before the people. Now, let me just throw out a couple suggestions. One thing we could do is appropriate the 40 as we did last year, but forewarn them that this amount will start to decrease. They will need to start raising more of this ourselves. Maybe not huge, not going to wipe it out. The other thing is we could start next year and say appropriate $35,000 for the arts, and that next year they've got to raise $5,000 to help pay for the administrative costs and all that. So those are just two suggestions I throw out. What is the desire or thoughts of the committee? Bill and then Carolyn.
I really like the second idea that that maybe we put out the 35 and say we can do 35. I think everybody's got to recognize that the wind is blowing a different direction now than it was 2 or 5 or 10 years ago. And that everybody has to take stock in where the finances of this town are and where they're going, including the arts. It's not that I'm picking on the arts or anybody else. So if this were 5 years ago, the 40K would probably pass, but I think today we have to all acknowledge and take part in what's happening, what's going to be happening with our budget concerns and the amount of money the town has to spend. So I guess what I'm doing is I'm asking for a motion that we go with that, perhaps that idea of 35K.
I'll make that motion.
Sorry?
I'll make that motion.
Oh, you will?
Yes, I will.
Okay, so Bill, are you making a motion and are you seconding it?
I'm making
Sure.
a motion.
Okay, Carolyn.
I think that we should keep them where they're at. They came, they presented a budget, they did a great job given that they're artists and don't know what the heck they're talking about.
That's right.
I had a mess for Fine Arts from Yale School of Drama.
Well, yes, but that's a very different situation than.
Doesn't make you an artist.
We haven't seen your budgets either.
Yes.
My point is, I still know how to read spreadsheets.
Well,
And I didn't learn it in graduate school.
we may have other skills than some of these do. I would like to see us give them the 40 this year and then move down to 35 next year, so that we're giving them a warning ahead of time. So I will be voting against that.
Alan?
I'm going to move the other way and offer an amendment that basically we take the $40,000 budget as stated, reduce it by the projected revenues and appropriate $25,000.
Second.
Okay, who seconded? Okay, so I've got a motion for 35,000 that's made and seconded, an amendment to that of 25,000. Okay, and I only accept 2 votes or 2 motions at the same time. So when we come back to this, I will take a vote on the first one. If that fails, then I'll take a vote on the 35. So that's the order. Okay, Alan? Peter?
First one, I'm sorry.
Peter?
I was going to make an amendment.
Too late. John?
Well, I guess I can't make an amendment, but, my feeling is that keep them at 40 and find a way to get them at 40 and get them to 35 next year if they need to be. I recall that we seem to have a surplus in the Water Chestnut contingency fund. Perhaps we could take $5,000 from there. We also we also heard about these compost bins around town. We have this $100,000 line item in the DPW budget, which we don't know if it's for 2 more compost bins or 50 more compost bins. I think compost bins are important, and I know there'll be upcoming costs, but compared to the long list of things that the Arts Commission is delivering, I suggest we take $5,000 or $10,000 from compost bins that we still don't know how many we're getting, and fully fund the arts this year.
Okay, John? The other John.
I would also support the full 40,000 with potential for next year, asking them to spend less. I think it's basically just fair to give them forewarning and give them an opportunity to identify ways to either raise more money or cut their expenses. I can't support Alan's proposal. Basically what that's saying is take whatever income you get and spend it on your administrative and management costs and therefore not funding your public art, which is what they're using the income for now.
Okay, Grant?
All that was said last year, and what you said, I said last year. All this is just a repeat of last year. And I had that feeling that when they left, that they didn't hear what we said. I'm still not certain that they heard some of our questions of what we said. And can't count on them for the information you're asking for. I mean, because I said last year about Carolyn, they need these consultants to help come up with plans, but they're not making any. I can't tell what the plans are. So I think last year we said the same thing. I think this year we ought to back up the message, and that's a good way of doing it.
Okay, Annie?
So, I agree that I was really excited that we were funding this commission, and I think that it's really great that we did it. And they were a little deer caught in the headlights here. They whatever it was you guys said last year, they didn't understand it in a visceral way. So my reason for supporting the idea of reducing their request by $5,000 is to put some pressure on their fundraising committee and to point out to them that when they raise money for public art projects, it would be standard operating procedure to use some portion of that money to fund their administrative costs. That's how a nonprofit arts organization would do it. They would simply apply for $1 million to do a project and then say that $100,000 of that was going to support their administrative overhead costs. Now, the other thing I think they need some advice and support. So I would request that we assign me as the Finance Committee liaison to the Arts, the ACAC, and I will help them to think about this. And part of the reason that I want to do that is because this is a big part of my practice as a consultant. I work with organizations on their fundraising systems, so I understand how this all works. And also, I raised a bunch of money for the Arlington Education Foundation, and I know that this community would happily provide somewhere in the $20,000 to $50,000 range of funding for these public art projects, some of which could be used in this budget. So that's my offer to help mitigate the fact that we would be putting them on notice when cutting their budget by their request by $5,000.
Okay, we've got a lot of work today. We can't, beat this to death, so let's go through it. Carolyn and then Alan.
Well, I'm just wondering, and as you all know, I haven't made a lot of these meetings this year. How many other budgets have we cut when they've shown up at the door? Yeah.
Got snow and ice the other day. We don't know what we're going to do with the special town meeting. There's about 5 or 6 articles coming up.
That we may cut money for?
Who knows?
Have we cut any money yet this year?
Snow and ice budget.
Gotta start somewhere.
Well, the snow and ice budget is.
Carolyn?
Yeah, that's
Focus on this. I mean, this is,
That's my point.
okay, Alan and then John.
I just want to remind everybody that in the Finance Committee report was the comment, it's expected that the ACAC was going to raise non-tax fund dollars. So it's hard to say that it wasn't, it's pretty explicit in the report. And then I also want to just put things in perspective. If there's only $25,000 to administer a small volunteer committee that puts haiku on the bike path and wraps trees in yarn and puts paper posters on libraries and paints transformer boxes, when I compare that to what, say, Envision 2020 is spending, a few $1,000s, Transportation Advisory Committee that performs life-saving engineering consulting work with very high-paid consultants working for free for the town. Nothing comes close to $40,000 except water bodies, and we know that's spent to hire people to come in and harvest water chestnuts. All the other volunteer committees and commissions in towns are getting a few $1,000s and seem to operate just fine. So it's hard for me to imagine spending $25,000 to administer a small volunteer committee that's doing public art. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. That's a lot of money.
John?
I have a question. Sandy's here, and I heard some discussion earlier that maybe this, at one point, was considered to be part of the planning committee, and maybe the planning commission should run this because it was sort of economic development. This committee is influenced, and others in town are influenced by our 12 community comparables of Needham and Reading and Winchester and what the others are. We're going to make a decision here, I think, without any real knowledge of what other communities are funding. And maybe it's not a task for the people who were here, but it would be interesting for the Economic Development Committee or someone from the town to tell us, with our 12 comparable communities, how much town taxpayer money goes to support those. Because if it was zero, that would be influential to me, and if it was $100,000, that would be interesting to me. But to make a decision, I mean, maybe $25,000 is a lot, but maybe it isn't. It's hard to say without those comparables that we rely on for giving our school budget or other budgets.
Okay, Bill?
So I'm going to kind of globalize this a little bit. What I want to say is that last week we met with Karen Malloy in Human Services, and we weren't really nitpicking, but we were able to get one of the line items, one of the lines down from a budget proposal of $200,000 to $150,000, just by asking some questions. Okay, that's $50K. Okay, so here we're going from 50 to 45 or 25. So I just think we got to put the message out there in a way that times have changed. You can't just walk in and walk out with a rubber stamp on what it is that you want, even though what they're coming in with is well-intentioned. It's good stuff, but we all have to bear the brunt of what's going on economically with the town. That's it.
Okay. Now, the amendment to the main motion was for $25,000. So I'm going to take a vote on $25,000. If that passes, that's the vote of the committee. If it fails, I'm going to put the original motion of $35,000 on the table. If that passes, that's the motion of the committee. If it fails, I'm open for another motion of probably $40,000. So on the motion for $25,000, all of those, since I don't think anything's going to be unanimous here, all of those in favor of $25,000 appropriation, please raise your hands. 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, the motion for $25,000 fails. Next motion is for $35,000. All those in favor of the $35,000 motion, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sure I got that right. Please, those who oppose the 35, please raise your hand. Oppose it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I don't know why.
You didn't count me there. I'm supporting them.
35. Okay. That's 12 people. Please let me do this again. All those in favor of the $35,000, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, the chairman votes in favor. The motion carries 8-7. Okay, so the recommendation of the Finance Committee will be 8-7 for $35,000. Okay.
I mean, part of doing this cut is to send a message. So are we actually going to convey that message, or are we just going to?
Well,
I have volunteers if there's.
okay.
I'm happy to
Oh,
meet with
good
them.
point. All those in favor of Annie becoming the liaison to the Arts and Culture Commission, please raise your hand.
Yes.
Okay. Annie?
Better me than you, huh?
All right. Annie, tell them that we're appropriating $35,000 plus you.
I got it.
That's worth $5,000.
Okay?
Spend a hell of a lot more than $5,000 by the end of the year, trust me.
Probably save $5,000 in the website.
That we expect
Yeah.
Annie
Okay.
to raise more than the $5,000.
My school raised more than $5,000.
I feel assured we'd have a budget next year.
Okay.
Have a budget next week.
So,
Makes sense.
that is passed. Now, let's move on. And Annie, could you call them and convey the general tone?
I already was out in the hall volunteering. and helping.
Okay, great. And the logic behind the 35. Okay. Mr. Sandy,
Hello.
I hope you've enjoyed this. I didn't think it would quite go this long.
Well, somebody called me an aesthete earlier today, so all this talk about art has been very satisfying.
Okay.
Oh, because I took a nice picture of the sunset.
Oh.
Yeah, oh my God.
Okay, so the first thing, if anybody wants to take out their warrant, the first thing I want to do is go through with Sandy the articles. So on 47, this is the cable TV. Finance Committee supports the favorable recommendation of the Select Board. So that's fine. Let me... Okay. Okay, and Article 48 is the excess budget. So if you could get that to us in the next couple days, that would be appreciated.
Yep.
Okay, and I think we've actually voted
Yeah,
on those articles.
yeah, February 13th.
Right, so we just need the money for them. Okay. Okay, parking benefit, Charlie, you're going to be coming to us today with those?
Yes.
Article 50.
Actually, Brian will.
Okay. Brian, it seems to me we only need one article to do the job. Would that be true?
On the parking,
Yeah.
defer to Sandy. I mean,
There's two articles.
I would assume that that's all you really need. Is that you have two sides for revenue and then the expenditures.
Okay, do you have a handout on this at all, or?
Well, we did it.
We sent, it was already emailed out.
We already voted it.
Yeah, we did vote it.
I can give you a copy of it. Last week.
Yeah, it's voted, it's up to the...
Okay, this is the...
It's now to the chairs fixing all the crap motion to deal with.
Okay, this is the parking benefit district. I don't have that we voted those.
Yeah, we did. We
did.
revised the numbers.
I have a copy, but I'll give it to you.
Okay, no, we voted the budget.
As a matter of fact, we have it in the minutes.
Okay?
The minutes said that we did them both in one vote, and you were somehow going to put them together.
Okay, so we voted favorable action on them.
On 53, the question on 54 was the vote on 53 where we established the amount of money that was going to be used to defray the parking budget, the treasurer's, the former treasurer's former parking budget. Did that require a separate vote or not? That's what 54 is about. In other words, transferring money from the parking district fund to the, essentially, what is it, the treasurer, the parking,
treasury, yeah,
parking
please.
clerk's budget. Right, Sandy?
Yeah, I think the only thing that's left in the parking clerk's budget is an offset for about half of the salary of the person that's there, because we reduced the parking budget by down to $5,000, and we'll just pay the cost of the credit card fees and so forth out of the parking fund going forward this year, so there's no more back and forth offset.
I think you've totally confused everybody.
Good.
Okay, why don't, rather than take up time trying to figure this out, was that something that was eventually end up with me?
Yeah, you can have that.
Okay, I'll work out with Sandy under the parameters of this,
It's fine.
how we actually have it here. So, both. Okay. Carolyn, are you ready with the,
Let's do OPEB, the OPEB article.
well, no, we're going
So you're doing it
in order. So I'm not asking you to put the vote now. Are you ready with the reclassification?
Yes.
Okay.
Hand those out.
Yeah, why don't you hand them out now? Okay, the collective bargaining will deal capitals from Charlie. We've already voted. Okay, Grant, are you ready with the two water and the sewer articles?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll get to those. Are those the same as last year? Grant? Are they the same as last year, the amounts?
They are, actually.
Okay, that's easy enough.
Give one to Sandy.
That's done. Okay. Okay, and Carolyn, you're ready with the OPEB?
Okay, for OPEB.
Don't have to do it now. I'm just, because I want to get him home to his family, even though we don't go home to our families. Okay, special town meeting articles. Now, we've already voted Article 1, which is the capital budget for the high school, so that is done. We just have to fill in a couple of percent spaces. Okay, acquisition of real estate, Article 2. To see if the town will vote to authorize the acquisition of real estate at 25 Grove Street. So this is in case we want to have a road going out to Grove Street from the high school. So could you take it from there?
Yes. What this would do is authorize the select board to negotiate or take by eminent domain this property. At this moment in time, it is not clear for sure that we need to take this property, but there's been a lot of discussion at the Arlington High School Committee about the need for a road to go out from the high school to Grove Street. And really, it seems like the only way to accomplish that, if they do put a road in, is to take this property so that it can be used to give egress out to Grove Street, and/or to move part of the DPW facility, maybe the fueling depot is one idea that has been bounced around, to put that out there, and then it would allow for a clean shot out to Grove Street. The assessed value of this property is $644,900 as of the most recent assessment. It is a rental property. In other words, it's, I do not believe it's owner occupied. There are tenants in there. And the reason that town council asked that this be put on a special warrant is because even though once the community takes land by eminent domain, pretty much the only issue then is what it's worth. And that issue can be litigated, but the issue of the taking really can't be litigated. However, council wants to make sure that if we go through that process, there's a sufficient time, and that things don't come up in the courts in one way or the other. Or, you could have frivolous motions filed or things of that nature in a proceeding. And so he just wanted to have enough time, if we're going to go in that direction, to be able to start the taking process in due course. So that is where we are. We have not approached the owners at this point about the possibility of buying. I think that's premature at this point, because I think as we go forward with the high school building process, there'll be a final decision made about whether to put a road in. That final decision has not yet been made.
Okay, so you said it was 644,
900.
900. Okay, so, questions? And what I want to do, what I would like to do, if we can, is take votes on each of these while Sandy is still here. So, on that. So, Carolyn?
Is this the little, no, it's not a little house. Is this the house that's adjacent to the parking lot?
Yes.
The DPW park, and it's on the same side as the DPW parking lot?
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, Alan, and then David and Charlie.
Oh, for what it's worth, Zillow values it at 744.
David?
My question is, we're thinking of the possibility at some point to take the property by eminent domain, and yet we haven't notified the owners of the property that we're even thinking about it. And how can we're on cable TV and we're gonna take a vote to endorse that idea, and the owners of the property don't know it unless they're watching cable TV.
It's been discussed several times at the Arlington High School committee, and I don't have personal knowledge of communication with the owner, but I know that this has been floated publicly. This will not be the first time tonight that this issue has come up.
I understand that, Sandy, but I still say that the town, if they're contemplating taking someone's property by eminent domain, they should make them part of the conversation right from the get-go, not later on down the road.
Good point. Charlie?
That was sort of my question as well. I mean, we're being asked to vote on this, but it doesn't seem, it's not clear to me that it's necessary. Why should we be authorizing the town to take somebody's property if it's not proven to us that it's necessary?
It just authorizes the select board to have the authority to move forward.
Right, but I don't want to give them.
Okay.
Other questions? Who pays for this?
This would be part of the cost of the high school project, I would think, or maybe. That's a good question. I mean, we haven't come to a final resolution on that issue, but I think we would then have to work it out between the high school and the DPW project. If the land is being used for DPW as part of their project, but yet the only reason we're doing this is because of the high school, I think we'll have to figure that out.
Because it's either going to come from the high school debt exclusion or it's going to come from the capital budget.
Well, that's right. It's going to be one of those two.
Yeah.
Looks like I'll definitely vote against it.
Any other questions for the deputy? John?
Sandy, I was just a little confused about what you just said. You said that it's going to be used by the DPW, but it's the high school.
Oh, because
high school project.
Because the reason the DPW would need the land is to be able, I think, to move some part of the facility that now it would be in the way of a road like the fuel depot. Where they have the fuel depot in the current plans would not allow for direct access to Grove Street. But if we took this property, one of the ideas is to use the fuel depot onto Grove Street, which would have the advantage of having vehicles being able to come in and fuel right there without having to go farther into the yard and through the parking lot and so forth. That, at this point, is one possibility that is not a final architectural solution. So it may be that in order to have the road work, there's some part of the DPW facility that has to go into this property.
And is there a residence next to this property?
Yes.
There's a multi-unit apartment building next door.
So we would be putting a fuel depot next to an existing residence?
Which is next to a DPW yard.
Yeah, I
Yes.
understand, but the fuel depot is kind of tucked back right now, so.
No, the fuel depot's right beside it now.
No.
It's right there.
No, it isn't. There's a big difference.
There's a house, and beside, on the right side of the house is the fuel depot. That's where we pump up we put gas in all the cars, and trucks. The pumps are right there.
I don't. Okay.
Anyway.
We'll sort of focus on it. I don't think it's right there, but I think we have three options tonight. We can vote favorable action, we could vote no action, or we could basically take no position right now until we get additional information. And by the way, I'm thinking that April 10th might be a viable meeting, so please keep that on your agendas, because there's just so much going on right now. Okay, I think Carolyn, you were next.
To his point, if we move the fuel pumps adjacent to multi-unit building, the owners of the multi-unit building would have a right to then attempt to gain money for the decrease in value of their property given a fuel. So it's not just the property we're taking. It would potentially be the multifamily as well, who would be asking for money given the decrease in value of the home, of the apartments. If I owned it, I would be going after the town for that.
If I owned it, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
Constructive taking.
Okay, Charlie?
Yeah, so Sandy, you have a question? Yeah, so you twice used the term may tonight.
Yes, sir.
What are the steps required to actually determine whether it's, has to happen or not? And you said earlier that a taking couldn't be litigated, but they could litigate the price.
Correct.
And how does that play out with respect to the completion of the high school project?
So as to the first question, the discussions at the high school committee have all been around, so frankly, back and forth about whether this road is desirable. There's some people on the committee who have favored it, particularly some of the school committee members. Other people have been more skeptical about it. I think as we move forward and we start construction and we start to see some of the traffic flow, I believe at some point we'll have to make a decision whether that road to Grove Street is necessary. All I can tell you right at this moment is that decision has not been made. Then, if we start the ball rolling and going in that direction and have that road open in a timely manner so it operates well with a functioning school, I think we want enough lead time to prevent any kind of litigation delays. I said that legally, strictly speaking, you cannot litigate a take. The government has the right to take land for governmental purposes. That doesn't mean that couldn't be. I think what town council has advised me is that could still be slowed down potentially by proceedings, but ultimately he thinks we would prevail, but that still is a delay in getting the road built. And finally, the issue is the amount of the taking. So the court will determine what the fair market value of the property is. I gave you one figure today, which is the assessed value. Alan gave you another figure from Zillow, which is higher, and I'm sure the fair market value probably is higher because our assessed values tend to be a little bit below fair market value. So we would either, having done takings before, I can tell you, we'll either negotiate with the owner to set a price that both parties agree on, and it's a friendly taking, or we just take the property and then the owner would have the right to litigate the amount.
So, but you still didn't answer my question.
I'm sorry.
And the question is, let's assume the taking is moving forward. The owner doesn't accept the price, he litigates. Sometimes these court cases can take years. So what's the impact on the high school program, on the project?
It is my understanding from having asked town council this question, but I could certainly ask it again, is that we would own the property, but the issue is then just a matter of, so to speak, damages. We would in fact take the land and could move forward with our construction.
Okay. Thank you.
It's ours, however much it is. Okay, Dean.
So just to sort of drill into a finer point on something you said, is this proposed taking of a resident's private property for a critical government interest, or is this something that might be nice to have? Because if the committee isn't absolute, like if the city of New London, the town of Arlington taking this property because it's a critical need or because it's a nice need?
Well, to distinguish this from the city of New London case, that was a case where there was a taking basically from one economic purpose for another economic purpose. They wanted to do economic development there, and they thought the existing property was not sufficiently well-maintained, or it was sort of like urban renewal. This is a taking for a strictly governmental purpose, and so I would say, in my humble opinion, there'd be no question about it as a legitimate government purpose. One
Can
might
the
argue.
project survive without?
Pardon me?
Can the high school project survive without? Or is Arlington High gonna have, we can't do the project without this?
I would defer to, I would ask you to ask the school committee what they think about that. I mean, there are people who think that it would make a better project and improve traffic flow because there are concerns about traffic flow issues. And they believe that this is the preferred solution. There are other people who think that the existing layout of the roadwork and moving cars onto Mill Street, or having this configuration of cars within the parking lot going in both directions because the road's going to be wider, will be sufficient, and we won't need that extra road. That is a matter of opinion, and how critical that is or not is also a matter of opinion.
Okay.
Now, how much of a vote does town meeting have to take to pass this? Is it a 2/3?
I believe it is not. I believe it is a straight vote, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. Okay, sorry, John, Dave, I'll go right around the table.
I was just going to propose that we table this discussion until a later date when we can get some more information from the school committee as to the rationale for this project, and get some more certainty as to whether there's a need for it.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, so motion to table. Now, we'll finish discussion this first. We could come back Wednesday. What specific information would you be looking for?
Specifically the rationale, the thinking, the school committee's thinking as to why they think they need this. To what extent has there been a final decision made as to the need for the road?
I think he's already said that. There's no final decision's been made. And is there a school building committee this week? Meeting?
No.
Okay. So if we tabled, and that's fine, I don't care. We could table, we could go to April 10th if we meet there, or we could meet on it the first night of that even of town meeting, and then have to put something on the seats almost immediately. But so probably April 10th is what it would definitely mean. Let me. I think David, you had your hand up.
I just want to say that there's a little history there to that property in reference to eminent domain. Years ago, behind that house was the gas tower, which came down. And behind the gas tower was a house that the town took for eminent domain for a proposed high school project that never really come about. Now we're going to fast forward up until the late 80s and 90s. That piece of land behind the house was a parking lot for the school when they were renovating the high school. And there was actually a road already there, if you will, not a proper design road, but there was a road behind from Grove Street to the back of the high school. So over the years, that has been a lot of discussion as to what to do with that piece of land. Presently, the land behind the house is now a practice soccer field. Today, I happened to be at that land for another reason, and there was at least 10 hard hat people walking all that land right as it abuts the property that we're talking about today. So there's been a lot of discussion over the years, and I don't think the building committee nor the school committee have agreed to anything about taking that road at this point, or taking that property for a road. So, again, we're being asked to do something that they haven't even made a final decision on, one way or the other. So I'm gonna agree with, perhaps maybe we should table this. Not too long, but just table it.
Okay. Grant?
Saying that, let's say, keeping the fuel depot where it is Plan A, and moving it would be, let's say, Scheme Z. What's the difference in the dollar value? And is there any difference in the price of moving fuel tanks? And we know there's going to be some possible hazardous waste cleanup anyway, but does that add anything to it? Or change anything in the budget? And how much does it change?
I can tell you I don't know. B, I can tell you that in any case, I believe the fuel depot can't be where it is now. So it's going to be moved in any case.
Oh, okay.
There's still a lot of design work that's going on this project. And I don't expect that they're going to know all these things for months to come.
Okay, I didn't realize when you said there's some people that want to keep it where it is, that there's actual state, it's going to move somewhere. Okay.
Okay, John?
I'm curious about the impact on the DPW. We're rebuilding the DPW. My understanding is that it floods. There's 2 historic buildings which we have to maintain. We're going to move some IT functions and a controller there so that more of our town is consolidated in a single location, not the senior center, Parks and Rec, the high school, Grove Street, Town Hall Annex, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So background for my question, which is, does the additional 8,000 square feet of land next to there allow for greater flexibility for the town offices we are constructing, or is this solely a high school road question?
It is necessitated by the possibility of putting a road in, and it will not affect any of the offices. The offices are all in other buildings, they're set they wouldn't go into this area in any case.
They can fit everything they need. Okay, the fuel moving was what was confusing me then, because it sounds like the fuel would be where the road was or something like that.
I believe that one of the possibilities for being able to engineer a road through there is to change the original DPW plans for where it was going to put its fuel depot and move it out to Grove Street. It is not the only possibility. I just wanted to give that as an example of why this might be useful.
Charlie?
So first of all, according to the Secretary of State's website, eminent domain requires a 2/3 vote at town meeting. Secondly, I would maintain that we should vote no action on this. If it becomes necessary to come back to it, we can always come back to it. But we shouldn't be supporting the taking of land when there's no consensus that it has an important role. I mean, I think this is a crazy discussion. I mean, somebody lives in that house. There's a family there, okay? And if indeed the purpose for the municipal purpose or the community purpose is serious and real and critical, as Dean raised, then we should be by all means supporting it. But if we don't know, think about the personal turmoil that we're inflicting on the family by saying, okay, now your house is up for eminent domain, and what's the cause, et cetera. I just think it's the wrong thing for the finance committee or town meeting to do.
I'm happy to take that as a friendly amendment.
So moved.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay. This school is not going to get a shovel in the ground until when?
A year from June, or a year from now when school lets up.
Okay. So in between, we'll have at least one annual town meeting and probably at least one, maybe even 2 special town meetings. And probably the road is going to be one of the latter things to get the parking, the road, all that stuff would be one of the latter things to get done?
Yes, I believe so.
So maybe there's not a rush to this. I'm not putting words in your mouth, okay? Okay, okay, so the motion on the table now, if I understand this correctly, is no action. Discussion on that. Dean?
So I think probably, yes, I wholeheartedly agree, support what Charlie says. I would additionally say on top of that is, if the towns, so elected officials should stand up and say they want to take someone's private property, right? We shouldn't have to be dealing with this as any. So if Mr. Chapdelaine wants to take someone's property, he should stand there and say he should do it. Mr. Dunn should be next to him, and Mr. Cardinal Beach should be next to him and say, yes, we want to take someone's private property. Not dump it to the finance committee to backdoor something that we kind of, sort of might want to do. The committee hasn't really figured it out yet. Like, have some guts. Stand up in front of it. That's why you got elected. And when you have when we're cutting ribbons and having fun, it's great. But when you have to face the fire, you dump it at us. So I think that I would vote no and no and no until the three of them are in front of me, and they publicly say that they want to do this.
Don't be shy about what you feel.
I am so, like, taking people's private property goes up on my list of things that I don't do. Unless
Okay.
there's a huge interest in this.
Okay, we've got a motion on the table. Unless there's some additional information, the motion has been made and seconded for no action. All those in favor of no action, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, no action, unanimous.
Mr. Foskett, I believe hell has frozen over and we owe everybody a drink.
And Charlie, as I add to, could you write up a comment on this?
Sure.
Okay, and just send it to me and Liz. Okay. Article 2, zoning bylaw amendments.
So,
Our appropriation future zoning bylaw amendments.
Article 3.
this is Article 3, yes.
3, right.
So this is part of sort of an ongoing effort by the planning department to take the master plan and continue to update the zoning bylaws in conformity with the master plan. And this is sort of the next tranche of doing that. There are several things that they want to look at in this next round, including in particular, things around the business districts. I believe there's something like 12 different business districts in town, and they find that a lot of those things are reflective of businesses that haven't been here for years or don't need to be. So what they are asking for is to be able to move forward to hire a consultant to do the next round of investigation on how to help clean up the zoning bylaws so that they can present further proposals to town meeting.
And how much is being requested under this article?
This is $50,000, I believe.
Now, is all of this contingent upon the current slew of zoning bylaws passing?
No, because it has to do with other issues that, excuse me, this is $70,000.
Oh.
This, the other one is $50,000. No, I think, well, I guess I would say if the current things don't pass, then they might have other work to do. But I believe that they still feel that there are a number of issues having to do with our current bylaws that just they need to continue to work on to bring them in line with the master plan and their vision of zoning in the town.
Now, are these primarily in the business districts? Or, I'm trying to remember what you said.
Sure, they said they would like to update the industrial zoning district to reflect current needs in today's industrial and innovation uses and markets, further refinement of the business zoning districts per the master plan. We'll also be working on zoning amendments to address climate resiliency in partnership with members of the zoning bylaw working group and the Conservation Commission. That's, I'm reading from an email to me from Jenny Raitt, explaining what some of their plans are.
Okay, and the $70,000 would be for consulting services? Questions? John?
I guess I was not gonna ask a question, I was gonna just make a comment. This is, the town spent a lot of time and money, a lot of public participation in the Arlington Master Plan. While this is a lot of money, the town meeting endorsed the master plan, and I don't know how many, tens or dozens of meetings and public participation they had in that process. I think that we need to support the funding of this, otherwise whatever was in the master, the goals of the master plan will never be achieved. And, I think strategically it's pretty important for the town.
You have a motion?
Oh, I so move, sorry.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, so a motion's been made and seconded for $70,000 for consulting services, specially focused on the industrial and business areas, innovation zones, et cetera, et cetera. Discussion. John?
I had a question. So the planning department already works on things like climate change preparedness. What is the reason that this isn't just within the planning department budget rather than a separate article?
I think these are, if I may, I think we don't tend to put these things in because they tend to be one-time chunks. When you hire somebody for a period of a few years, what's in the operating budget tends to be the ongoing staff and day-to-day activity. So I think there's just been a tradition. I believe prior work on these things has been funded for these kind of articles, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe somebody else can help me with that.
Yeah, I think also, what I've observed over the years is that making changes to the zoning bylaw is extremely complicated, and it takes, I almost wanted to use the term nerd, but it takes a very specialized person to dig into those zoning bylaws, and combination of legal support and geographic knowledge, and it's very complicated. So they don't have that resource every day in the planning department.
Other discussion. Grant?
Who would actually be the hiring committee, as it were, for this consultant?
The planning director, Jenny Raitt.
Okay. One person there.
I mean, I think all this hiring is subject to the supervision of the town manager eventually, but
Right.
yeah.
There is, and I don't know who is on the zoning bylaw working group, but there is a zoning bylaw working group that she works with on these issues. And I'm sure that ARB is part of it and others.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, motion's been made and seconded under Article 3 for $70,000 for consulting services for those areas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, favorable action, unanimous. Disposition of real estate parcel 133- et cetera on Gloucester Street. Will authorize the select board to dispose of or grant access to through a 216 square foot parcel.
There's a well on this little plot of land that squirts water out. It's our artisanal well. It is owned by the town because it was taken in a tax taking 80 years ago. The water gets onto the property of the neighbors. The neighbors don't like that. We would like to sell the neighbors this plot of land so they can go and try to get the things fixed. For us, it is a plot of land that we have no use for, and has created a problem for the neighbors. And so we are in conversations with the two neighbors, abutters to this property, about trying to get them, to give them this land. It is assessed at somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000, I believe, according to what town council told me today. There are ongoing conversations with these two neighbors. about what to do with this little well. And town council would like the ability, if you can reach a deal, to get this off the town's rolls and onto the neighbors, and then hopefully the neighbor can do something so that it isn't flooding, or you can control the flow or do whatever necessary, so that it's not hurting his property and we're not responsible for hurting his property.
Okay, Dean?
Move the recommendation as stated by Mr. Kohler.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is the town looking to get a couple bucks out of this?
I believe the town will try to get a reasonable amount, but I also think there's the issue of the potential litigation on the part of his property owner for flooding to his land and the erosion and so forth that it's causing. So I hope we're trying to get the whole thing off our plate.
So you'd like to get a few bucks, but your biggest priority is to...
Make the problem go away.
Yes. Okay, Peter?
Why is this a finance committee, Art?
Disposition of land. It's an asset. Grant?
How do we know it's a well? And is it an artesian well?
It is an artesian well.
It is, okay. There's a whole spring down the whole side of it.
Okay, is there any, yeah,
How
Brent?
bad is the damage when it, is there a damage to the surrounding area as well, the surrounding yards of just this particular house?
I believe the issue of how bad the damage is a matter of some dispute. And I believe it is mostly one landowner, but maybe a little bit of another.
But not people's basements.
That, I frankly do not know the answer.
Is there any further discussion or questions on this article? Motion's been made and seconded for favorable action. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Article 5. Moving along. Okay, so here's the 50,000, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the purpose of this is consultants again?
Yes. What the planning department would like to see is consultants help design some residential design guidelines. These will come into play when there are demolition permits that would result in a new single or two-family residential construction. It will allow the planning department and the zoning board of appeals to, in reviewing plans, to refer to certain design standards. The idea of these design standards are to maintain and enhance architectural character and aesthetic qualities of the community. This is something that happens in some of our surrounding communities. It would be advisory to the boards that already have the authority to put conditions or to grant in their regulatory function for new construction. And what the town is looking for, the department is looking for, is somebody to come up with design standards to help in the conversations around tear downs and new single and two-family houses.
Okay, Annie?
So presumably, the only time that we would have standing to have these conversations is when we have standing to otherwise withhold the permit, like a special permit or a variance?
You know, I asked that question today.
And what answer did you get?
I believe that under the general authority that's granted under chapter, I think it's 40A, the zoning law, the zoning board of appeals generally has authority to make to set out restrictions. I do not pretend to know the full array of those. I'm not a zoning
Right,
expert.
but that would be when you had made an appeal to the zoning board.
I suppose, yes. Zoning is not my thing.
I
And
understand.
so what I can tell you
I'm trying to decide
is,
whether I'm voting for this money or not, Sandy.
yeah, no, I understand. What I can tell you is that I believe that the town has the power to do this now, but that it would like to develop is some public standards so that when the public is coming forward to propose development and so forth, there's a set of criteria that everybody can look to and understand what's going on. I think there's been a lot of conversation about new building in town and what's going up, and again, I just sort of followed that secondarily.
But we would only be talking about when somebody wants to build something, they can't build as of right.
I believe, I did ask that question too. I believe as of right, you were still allowed, the town is still allowed to put certain restrictions on. I do not pretend to understand the full panoply of what those restrictions are.
So for example, you get a tear down of a Cape, they're putting up a side-by-side, two-family duplex, and you get questions of how large, setbacks, how the slant of the driveway.
That's codified in the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
This sounds like it's aesthetic judgment, which is different.
John and then Charlie?
Yeah, that was gonna be my question. Are we talking about guidelines here or code changes?
These would be guidelines that would inform a design review board that would be opining to the regulatory agencies and boards about proposed projects.
And
So it's only when a permit's involved.
Could those guidelines, once enumerated, be used to, say, for someone to go to court and say, the board applied arbitrary standards that didn't conform to the town's own guidelines?
I think they're trying to get away from a situation like that in as much as they have the power to regulate, whatever power they have to regulate now they have. And when somebody comes in and says, I would like you to not approve this new project down the road because, I don't like it. If you have design standards that the town generally can apply and look to, I think the idea is to reduce the possibility of litigation over those issues, because you can say there's standards to which they're adhering.
Got it.
So, my question is whether or not these guidelines are going to be presented to and approved by town meeting, because this is a very tricky area. On the one hand, part of the nature of ownership of an asset is the ability to dispose of it as you wish. That's what ownership's about. And on the other hand, of course, you have to have some regulations that take into account the greater surrounding community. But just because you have a street full of small capes that were built in 1948 doesn't mean that that street always has to be there in that form. So I'm concerned that somebody, and I'm not saying this in any pejorative fashion about a particular person, but somebody in the back room is going to come up with these guidelines. They get slipped over to the zoning board uses them, and the public is not aware of them. And if it can affect how somebody can dispose of their property or not, I'd have a hard time supporting this. Without a town meeting, a review and approval.
I would say, my understanding, if I may, that that these are not likely to lead to either zoning or other bylaw changes, and so in that regard, it is not something that we'd be asking the town meeting to approve, is my understanding, because they would be guidelines. The consultant will develop these guidelines and recommend a design process to the town. Again, I think this is to help the internal process of review as it now stands under existing zoning and the other town bylaws that might affect people's building. I also don't think that there's any advantage to keeping them secret. I mean, I think the whole purpose is to make them public so that people understand what the guidelines are.
But in a municipal democracy like Arlington, right, the citizens have a right to know what the guidelines are and to approve them or not approve them. This seems to me like it's one step beyond zoning or one step beyond the public regulations.
I suppose what we could do is put in the vote, provided however, no guideline shall take effect unless approved by a majority vote of town meeting.
Or even just endorsed.
If you like the idea in the first place. Any other discussion? John?
Yeah, Charlie, what I was hearing, and maybe I'm not hearing correctly, that this would, the intent of the guidelines is to remove some of the arbitrariness that we have right now in the system as part of the review process. And so that it would make it more transparent and to the owner in terms of what can be done with their asset. I mean, right now, they have to, go before the ARB or whatever for permission to do something. It's up to the members of the board, and there are no clear guidelines or criteria set out, as far as I understand. So I think the sense I'm getting is that we're trying to make it more let you guys more consistent, less arbitrary, and more understandable to those who are going before the ARB or going through whatever town process is required to do the work that they want to do.
Well, John, I agree with you that that the idea of guidelines has all the merits that you have described. However, they are also regulatory.
Yes.
And the question I have is, are they, very close to the current regulations, or are they in somebody's imagination an extension of those regulations? And in any event, they should be reviewed by some body, and I'm suggesting that should be town meeting to accept them or not.
Peter?
I agree with what you're saying, and I don't think that, both of you, but I don't think that we should be taking action on this without the best professional, apologies to you, Sandy, but without the best town professional input, which would be from the planning department firsthand.
John?
Maybe this was asked already. It says we're going to recommend a design review process. Is the implication of those words that we do not have a design review process now?
I think the redevelopment board has, in certain circumstances, a design review process. I couldn't tell you much more than that.
Insufficient. It doesn't exist, or it's.
There's a design review process. There are not specific guidelines. They come before depending on what the request is, who's doing what. They may go before the redevelopment board for design review and a special permit, or they may have to go to the zoning board of appeals for a variance. In either case, the design of the building becomes part of that discussion because they're asking to build something not as of right. Okay, so for example, when we put the second floor on my house, we could do that without any kind of special permit, so nobody asked us what we were doing about the windows.
Just in engineering, it's a term of art, design review process.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering, I mean, I understand you're saying what the zoning laws are, how many square, there's some rules.
Yep.
But a design review process implies some some sort of set of steps that maybe doesn't exist or
No,
does exist?
there is a design review process and is a set of steps. I think what's being said here is that often in that review process, like, for example, if you're asking to build a building on the plot of land and not have the kind of setbacks that we normally require.
Annie, a little louder, please.
If you're asking for setbacks, right, to like reduce the setbacks and have your building closer to the edge of the property, okay, you need a special permit to do that. And so the redevelopment board gets to look at your designs and say whether or not they agree with you that it's necessary to do that, okay? But the only time you have to go through that review process is if you either have some environmental impingement or some other thing about your building that requires you to get a special permit. So your normal, add an addition to my house, if I'm not trying to violate the setbacks, nobody gets to tell me, as I said, the paint color, or where the windows go, where the door goes, whether the house is pretty or ugly, okay? But when, for example, we built the drugstore that's next to the high school, they needed a special permit to build that building. And they got design review in front of the Arlington Redevelopment Board, who had a right to say, hey, we need you to make it prettier, we want you to rearrange your parking lot, we want you to not do, or to do certain things to make it fit better into the town. What I believe is happening here is that the planning department wants to write some guidelines that will mean that they are consistently applying the same standards to every one of those permits. And they want to hire a consultant to help them to write those guidelines.
I want to make a motion.
Charlie.
So I would like to move that we support this $50,000, subject to the review and approval of the work product by town meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made for favorable action.
And you can
And second to that,
wordsmith that however you want.
subject to
The review and approval of the work product by town meeting.
approval of
I'm sure there's
product
a better way to do that, say that.
by town meeting. Okay, moved and seconded for that motion. Further discussion. Dean?
So I will move that we just approve the 50,000.
I'm sorry?
I will move that we just approve the 50,000 with none of the strings attached. And the reason is, it's because currently under the contract, so these regulations, you can't rewrite the bylaws, right? The bylaws are the bylaws. You can't just say these are regulations, they overrule the bylaws. Right now, what we have are boards and committees who look at and interpret the bylaws on a case-by-case basis, and you actually don't know what their standards are. Okay? They could be arbitrary, they could be inconsistent. You have no way of knowing that. And if you're going to do a project in town, when you talk to developers, they often talk about the Arlington Redevelopment Board as being a group of tyrants, right? Because they're inconsistent and they're meddlesome, and they complain about how your building looks because they think they can run your life, okay? What this is doing is it's actually saying we're going to create standards. Like, so when you go to do a development project in town, you actually know what the standards are that people are going to look at on the project. And whether you like the standards or you dislike the standards, having standards is better than not having standards. Because if you don't have standards, you just have people's open interpretation at that moment of what they think it is. And I remember when that project that got built at the high school, like next to the high schools, I was watching those redevelopment board meetings and they were terrible. Like, because they were just personal opinions. Like, one member said, Arlington deserves a better looking building. And I thought, look, screw you. Like, who do you are to talk to the entire town of Arlington on how a building should look? And so to me, to put in standards is a good thing. It's a good thing to have a scope of doing it. So let's approve, I would say we approve the money, we let them do their work, and at least we have some rules to play by.
Okay, I think it's pretty clear which way. I'll just let Charlie do one more and
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of supporting the guidelines, so I don't disagree with Dean on that. I just think that the work product should be reviewed by town meeting.
okay. So, it's been made and seconded for the 50,000, subject to review and approval of the final product by town meeting. If you think that's a great idea, vote for it. If it wins, that's our vote. If it fails, I'll be up for another motion. All those in favor of the motion as presented, favorable action, please raise your hand. 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the motion passes 9-5. I'm sorry.
Just a quick sort of point of information if people want to look into this more. The one I'm familiar with is a book, the guidelines called Building with Nantucket in Mind. It's a 179-page guideline to give you some flavor of what these things can do.
Okay. Now, it's good that we can get into something that's non-controversial.
I can take a note of irony out.
Appropriation Mugar property.
Sorry?
Okay, I believe, if I remember correctly, the request is for $25,000.
That is correct.
And I can't remember, was it, did somebody say before how much we spent to date?
I can tell you that.
Okay.
To date, we have actually paid $27,000 to Higgins and Witten, the law firm that has been doing, helping us with the MUGAR process. We owe them another 20, 10 of which Doug thinks he can take out of his current year budget. So that all in all, we will effectively have spent $47,000 over the last 3 years. So with this appropriation, if Doug is right that he can take $10,000 out of his current budget, he may need 10 of this 25 to finish paying off invoices, but it will allow us to keep rolling forward in the process. We are in the midst of getting a determination as to whether there's a sufficient geography in town that has affordable housing on it, as opposed to the number of units. There are 2 standards that you can avoid a 40B building if you meet the standards. 10% of your housing can be affordable, or I think it's 1.5% of your land or something like that. And so we are arguing that we meet the land. We will get a determination on that, and one way or the other, one of the sides will appeal. It's been months waiting for this determination. It hasn't come yet, but at some point soon, at some point in the next year, it probably will come, and we'll have to do more work on this issue.
Okay, discussion. Questions?
Move 25,000.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of $25,000, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 32519. Okay, that finishes the warrant articles. Revised budgets.
Yes.
Do you have a handout?
I thought that that what I emailed you was going to be handed out, so I did not make one, Al. I'm sorry. My misinterpretation.
I can maybe put it up on the screen.
I could do that too.
Why don't you explain
Okay,
what
so-
happened and what Charlie...
Yes.
Part of the screen?
Yeah.
Let's see, I gotta find it first.
If you don't have it, Charlie, I do, so.
I'm pretty sure if you mailed it, I must have it. Who did you mail it to us, or did?
I sent it to Al and Liz.
Al did email around.
Did I send it out?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Well, at least one of us printed it out.
There were problems with figuring out the cost of the ASME contract. ASME is the union that represents most of our laborers and most of our unionized administrative staff. There are 3 subdivisions to ASME, and you see them on the personnel pages in the budget book when you look and you see some people, particularly in DPW and in the Water and Sewer Division, they're designated as MCs. That means they are hourly laborers. There are other administrative people. Some are designated as ATPs, and others are designated as OFFAs. Those are annual salary people. So there are 3 problems with the budgets that we presented to you in January. The first is that the MCs, the hourly workers, depending on how many weeks there are in a year and days in those weeks, we may have 52 week years or 52.2 or 52.4 years. And because hourly workers are paid for every hour as opposed to a full annual salary, for budgeting purposes, you have to take that into account. And when we were doing these salary tables to come up with the ASME contracts, I missed the fact that FY20 was going to be a 52.4 week year. So that was not incorporated into the original budgets. So that needs to be fixed. Second, there was just a spreadsheet error in how and when the COLA was approved for one aspect of ASME, the OFFA people. It was just them. It did not affect the MC or the ATP people. It was just that a cell didn't carry down. And so that was about a dozen or so people. It's not big money, but we did need to fix that. And then finally, there are 2 members of the comptroller's office who were reclassified last year. There were again, about a dozen people who were reclassified. And for reasons that I cannot really explain, we missed those 2 people. We got everybody else, but we did not correct the budgets of the comptroller's office to make sure that the staff that had been voted to be reclassified last year were properly reclassified. So as a result of that, there are a large number of budgets that were just plain wrong. And what you will see in a minute, and what Al printed out, was this one-pager that shows the budgets that are in yellow, the ones that are wrong. And what it has on here are the new tax total amounts, the new appropriation amounts, if there are offsets in there, and what the taxation total is, because the way we figure taxation is there's the total appropriation for spending, and then we change that by any offsets, and then there's the amount that's coming from the tax levy. So all that is on this one page here. That applies to all of these town departments. There's also on this sheet, I noted the difference in the reserve fund amount that had been reported to me, so I just put this down here because I'm trying to keep track of every single change that was different between this book and what Finance Committee has or needs to vote. And then in that same vein, there are the changes to the insurance budget. I don't know if you voted the health insurance budget yet.
No,
but
not yet.
Okay. So that is on this sheet. And on the rink and recreation enterprise funds, because those are union members, they have been affected. What I did not put on this was any changes to the water sewer budget, because my understanding that you're going to take up the water sewer budget tonight, and the changes are reflected in the numbers that Grant will present on that. Are there any questions?
Are the changes, do you have the changes for the controller's budget?
It handed out last week one day, because I have one with different numbers, so I should just compare it to that list right now.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to vote the ones in yellow?
Yes.
And Sandy picked up some other changes too that you didn't mention, some that we've already dealt with.
Okay, one at a time. Alan?
Is the $78,000 audit change incorporated into this?
Yes, it is.
The relocation of the audit?
Yes. You can see, if I can just stand up here.
Sure.
I know you can't see it, but this says an increase of $78,000 for the select board. It's right up here.
And then we're reducing 78 from comptroller.
And reducing 78 from the comptrollers.
Okay. Dean?
I move the recommendation of Mr. Cooler as shown on the screen, with the distinct understanding that I know that the chair might have like sort of details.
I'm sorry, once more?
I said I move the recommendation.
Okay.
And I'll second that, but I still gotta ask my question.
Okay, Annie?
So, Sandy, did you also adjust for the reduction in the snow and ice budget that we voted on finance committee?
Yes.
Okay, because Chris wanted me to be sure, and she's not here.
Yeah, in the backup in these other pages, I broke out Public Works has so many mini components.
Yes.
And so I think if you look
Yeah, in the
on,
finance committee column, I see that you got it right. I just wanted to be sure the roll-up number.
yeah, these all roll up into that.
Got it.
Okay, Bill, did you have a question?
I did have a point.
Now, by chance, there's a total down the bottom. How much money for all of the changes in the, for the union people, the AFSCME, and the rollover into the controller's budget? How much is the total? Approximately.
It is an overall reduction of $14,000.
The reduction.
It was a timing issue.
15,000.
14,974.
Okay.
That's 15,000.
Okay, so overall, when we make all the changes, we're going to have a small reduction.
Yeah.
Okay. Dane, were you stretching, or did you have your hand up?
I was stretching.
You're stretching, okay. Any other questions? Charlie?
So, what happens to the individual personnel in the list? When we put together the finance committee, well, I say we, when Al and Al put together the finance committee report, we have, 6 firemen and, all the positions enumerated at different grade levels. Are those changes available to the finance committee?
I've rerun all those personnel sheets and I've given them.
Yeah, I basically have the big book as a spreadsheet.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll have all the detail we need for the budget.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, so Sandy, this hasn't been the first time this has happened, so.
No.
Thank you.
Sound familiar?
Yeah, it does. Sid used to, for any who remember Sid, he used to have to remind Nancy Galkowski to make this adjustment for it, and one time Sandy, or Nancy missed, and we had to go back and do this. So the motion's been made and seconded to adopt the revised budgets from these changes, including the 2 positions in controller that were missed, the AFSCME positions, and Alan will revise the budgets, which he is supposed to get out to you late this week, early next week for your review?
Before Wednesday.
Before Wednesday. Okay, so you should have those budgets for all to review to make sure they fit. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the revised budgets as described? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Alan?
Okay, so now there was a question Sandy brought up about the $14,974 and where to put it to keep the 3.25%. Do we need to maybe leave me with some guidelines so I know what budget to tweak?
I think the article we want to tweak is the salaries, is the collective bargaining. So remember how we often have a motion to say X dollars is raised and put into the future collective bargaining.
So that's where we go?
That's where it goes.
Okay, do we need to vote?
Okay, I don't know. Dean, have we already taken your vote? Okay. Does anybody have any problem if there's any excess below that pushes the manager's budgets below the 3.25, that we put that into the collective bargaining article?
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have a vote. Okay, back to the Mary Margaret.
I just have one question though.
Oh.
So does this mean that the Council on Aging Transportation Enterprise Fund, those people are paid hourly? Is that a thing?
I don't believe they're unionized. I think they're part-time people, so it doesn't affect them.
Looks like all the rec and recreation
Right.
are on that list. Transportation, NYCC.
Okay, we're going to go through the budgets as reported by the individuals. I know you've been enthralled with everything that's happened
It
here.
doesn't get to late yet, because I have budgets that involve him giving me a number.
Oh, which budget?
The OPEB, yes, the OPEB number.
Okay, we can go to OPEB.
Well, you can hold that for now.
Okay, so there's three numbers in OPEB. A is the difference between non-contributory actual and 500,000. The second one is 155,000. That's standard. That's the same.
So that one is staying, okay, that's the
And the other is the money we take from the Health Benefits Trust Fund, which has, over the last several years, been 300,000.
And he said it was gonna be less, a little less. So the first number is the number that I have from Rich for the OPEB, the money that's coming out of OPEB, the OPEB fund, correct?
Right, so what is that number?
That number is 481,983.
$481,983.
Yes.
So in other words, if you add approximately 18,000 and change, that's what we're appropriating for the non-contributory.
Yes, here's just one.
In other words, we take the 500,000, we subtract the non-contributory appropriation, and the balance is the,
Yes, is this. So yes, that is correct. There's
Okay.
only one person left in the non-contrib fund.
they're hanging on.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
So I had that non-contrib number at 18,467, is that what
So
you?
does
48 cents.
So does that number plus the?
I'm sorry, 18,000?
18,000, the non-contrib number I had is 18,467.
.48, yes, that's correct. So that amount, 500,000 minus that is actually, this is over
18,467.48.
48.
Okay, so that,
I know,
the second part of the number you gave us is,
Sorry, hold on.
The appropriation for the non-contrib is 18,467.48 cents.
Yes,
okay, so anybody subtract that from 500,000?
I'm doing it right now.
It should be 481,983.30, I think.
No, that doesn't work.
481,53252.
481,532
Wait a
and
minute.
52 cents.
But isn't,
That seems.
It's 481,533.
I'm sorry, 4815?
532.52. Yep, that's right.
but isn't there a COLA, a small COLA number?
Oh, that's what the difference
There's-
is. It's a 3% COLA.
There's a small COLA number difference in there, which is $355.14, I think.
If you look on the top line,
Yeah.
They're saying
that's the first
18,467
top.
needs to be
That's what,
Right,
you take that
exactly.
away, you take.
Right. Yeah. Oh, so is this for COLA? That includes?
No, it's not, that's not the COLA, that's the, but there's a COLA number that gets added to that.
to the non.
Added to the non-contrib.
That's right.
So 18,467 was too low?
No, it's the right number.
It's the right.
Okay,
18,467.48 is the right number.
includes the COLA, so then the 481,532.52.
No, 481,983 is the right number.
Wait, it's 18,467?
State still reimburses us for COLAs. Oh, the state
It's
reimburses us for the
18,467,
COLA. We don't
correct?
pay for the COLA. So they cover the difference. So the 481,983 is correct. I'm sorry. Charlie is correct.
983.52.
933. Good question. He just rounded it.
Stick with the rounding.
So Do we need to increase the non-contrib?
The non-contrib should be 18,467.48. And the appropriation to the OPEB is 481,983.
So where's the three?
Charlie is correct.
The 325, which is the difference.
Has to add up.
Has to add to the 500.
Because of the COLA.
So the COLA doesn't
That
have
the
a-
So whatever we
state-
get 500,
the state is
355.
adding the COLA.
It's a spreadsheet, I can't just ignore it.
Of course you can.
You do whatever you want
All
with
my
a spreadsheet.
spreadsheets.
Okay, because, 500 minus 18,467.48 is 481,532.52.
Except that the state pays the COLA, so we get some more money out of it.
Ooh, state aid. We can increase state aid by that.
Yeah.
So do you need,
So we're, the OPEB is transferring 481,983. That is the correct number, Charlie. is
If you
correct.
didn't have a COLA, the number would add out to 500,000, okay?
Yeah.
But the 18,467 is increased by the COLA.
well, what are we appropriating for non-contrib?
481,983.
3.
No,
No.
18,467.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
18,467 and
Yeah.
48 cents.
Yeah, 18,467 and 48 cents.
Okay, so if that's the non-contrib,
Right.
and that's taken from 500,000, we end up with 481,532.52.
Except then the state gives us a little bit of money, which is why we end up at 481,983.
According to the paperwork I got from Rich, it is 481,983.
Yeah, because the state then adds in the COLA, so we don't actually have to spend 18,467.48. Well, let me see what the difference is. I'm sorry.
What do we have to appropriate?
For the
For the non-contrib is 18,467.48?
Exactly.
Okay. So why don't we just let the COLA go into the retirement fund?
Well, that's what we're doing.
That's what
Yeah,
we're
that
doing,
is
that's
what
what
we're doing.
481.
That's why it's higher.
That's why it's higher.
983 is, that's why it's higher.
Okay, which means you subtract one from the other, it's 481,532.52.
Right, but then you have to add the money from the state into the amount we're appropriating to the OPEB, and that's how we get to the 481,983.
Which is
So it's basically sending the COLA into the
OPEB.
OPEB.
Yeah.
Right, because the COLA number is included in our 18,000 plus,
Right,
but the state reimburses us for some of it, which we're then putting into OPEB.
and that is $450.48, I think.
So the COLA is, so the OPEB is 481,983.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Now, each of you be prepared, if somebody asks this question, to get up and explain this. That's okay.
I'll do it for you.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, and the last number was the, how much should be transferred from the Health Benefit Trust Fund? 300,000?
So it is staying the same?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you.
Confused
That's
us.
fine.
Okay, so under
What was the third number?
300,000,
Yeah.
that's under C.
What's A?
So that's the money that be transferred from the Health Benefit Trust Fund.
What, 300,000?
Yes.
Now, what's the other number?
Okay, so A is 481,983.
Yeah.
B is 155,000, and C is 300,000.
And that's all going into OPEB?
That's all going into OPEB.
Yeah, 155,000 is the,
It's from when the selectmen, is from when the selectmen many years ago increased the payment made by retirees on Blue Shield, I think it was on Blue Shield Blue Cross, from 10% to 15%. And they did it on the stipulation that the savings from that must go into OPEB. Otherwise, they'll drop the retiree contribution back. Okay, has everybody acknowledged the numbers? John?
Just one question, not that I want to drag this out any further, but out of those three numbers, they seem to add up to a different number than what's shown here in our budget book on page 208, which is 636,533. Is this number no longer?
I'm sorry, what was the number?
Where are you?
Appropriation to OPEB fund. Under miscellaneous warrant articles, page 208.
If it's an appropriation, it probably only includes A and B, because the 300,000 is a transfer.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion for those three numbers under Article 71?
I move that we accept these three numbers for Article 71.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? 32519. So do you need the deputy town manager?
As long as he checks that last comptroller number and we'll vote on that.
So I have to minus the 78 from this total.
Yes.
Okay, the next one I want to do is the reclassification. So you take out your sheet.
So the total number, since you don't have it on your sheet, is 11,360. If you add the 8 and the 2, you get 11,360.
Okay.
So that's what will go on to that's the amount for the reclass.
Okay, do you need Sandy anymore?
I can talk about reclass while he looks at it, checks some numbers.
Okay. Okay, so talk about reclass.
Okay, so the way, just to refresh everyone, the way this works is number one is we're reclassifying current jobs that exist. And so you'll see 1A is Water Systems Maintenance Craftsman. There are 8 of them. And they are going from an MC6 to an MC7. And they're each increasing by just a little over 1,000, except for one of them who had been at an MC5 and is going up to the MC7. And the total for all of them to move up to MC7 is the $8,835. The reason we're moving them up is because instead of hiring consultants to replace all of the meters at all of the town residents, we chose to do it internally. And so all of those 8 workers are now having much more direct interface with town residents, and they're doing something a little more complex than their job description in the past, which is why we're moving them to an M7. The next one is the Director of Planning and Community Development, and she is going from an M2 to an M3. And the reason we are doing that is that up until 2016, that position had been listed as an M3 level position. We dropped it down to an M2 with the hiring of a new person. She has been in the job for 3 years, and she has an exorbitant amount of evening meetings to go to. And she does not tend to then take off hours in the mornings to make up the difference. She's actually working a full day plus that. I recommend that she do less of that. However, the amount of work that she's doing acknowledges that she should probably be back up at the M3 level, which is what it had been at for quite a long time. So that is the reason for that change. Any questions? Go ahead.
John?
Just one, so she's in the controller's office?
No, she's not, and I need to change that. I'm sorry, that needs to change. She's in the development office. That was a change I also noticed and need to fix.
So that's not in the budget, right? That's why it's here.
No, it is in the budget, that's why it's here.
No,
Oh,
because.
I'm sorry. It's not, reclassifications are never in the budget of the year that the reclassification happens. It will appear in next year's budget. So if you are in charge of the planning and development, next year you'll notice there's a significant change in the person's salary, and that's because of the change in the grade from M2 to M3. But it's not within your budget book, so you shouldn't go back and try to change this in your budget book. It's a separate line item that we vote at town meeting. That's why it's a separate article. That's why we voted as an article. Does that make sense?
That's why when you review your budgets, last year's salaries that we voted are going to be less than what's in the budget book, which are,
Right.
have that added on.
Right. And so it's a good idea, if you have a salary here or a class that's changed, particularly if there's money involved, it's a good idea to save this page until next year so that you can reconcile that change. Or you can ask me and I can go back and look, because I have them from the last few years. So any of the positions after section 1, there's no monetary change involved. There's usually simply either a change in title or a position that hadn't been listed before that is now being listed. So if you look at, since there's less of them, let's skip down to 3. We're deleting the teen services librarian because we're changing the title. If you look up at 2 and you look at 2G, you'll see, I'm sorry, that's right, you're flipping pages. I squeezed it all on one page for me. So on the back, you'll see Teen Services Librarian L2, but if you look at the front at 2G, the title has simply been changed to Head of Teen Services L2. So there's no monetary change in their salary, just a change in title. The same is true for 3B. The building maintenance craftsman within recreation is now 2F, the assistant facilities coordinator. Now, he is listed as an A TP3. He is not an A TP3. He's an M TP3. So he is not. He's not under. Oh, yeah. No, he's not within. That's not necessarily true. A craftsman or facilities. Was he an M or was it this one that I'm pretty sure that's an M. I'll check, because I don't think that position is within the union. Okay.
It's in recreation, did you say?
Yeah, in recreation, assistant, it's, in the old one, it's building maintenance craftsman. For the senior clerk and typist, the 2A, the job already existed and wasn't listed. The senior clerk and typist, also the job already existed and wasn't listed. These two may be part-time roles, which is why they weren't listed. The outreach worker is an assistant and it's a town-funded position, to the head of the opioid outreach. And the head of the opioid outreach is actually a grant-funded position. So that position is paid for, but we realized that person needed some administrative assistance, and so we added this as part of the town budget. D is the Assistant Director of Recreation. This is an enterprise fund, is doing more programs. They can afford this additional role to supplement program management and support. So the town actually doesn't fund that job. The revenue from the recreation department is funding that job. Do you want me to keep going through all of these individually?
I think that most of them are fairly straightforward, and they're, like I said, there's no monetary. John?
When you say there's no monetary, except for the 2 that were retitled,
right?
Are these additional positions now reflected in the budget book?
No, they will be next year.
So again, these are next year.
But there's no bodies in, it's not an additional body. You can only do that through the budget. These, you go to the pay and classification plan, It's retitling or adding positions in the pay and classification plan.
But we're not actually putting bodies in those new positions.
No. The only monetary impact is under one. This is why when you're deleting on item 3, you're actually not deleting a body. Okay, Charlie?
So, you have the treasurer and collector of taxes shown here as an addition. That takes place next year, but how do we have a collector and treasurer and collector of taxes if we don't have a position?
So that the treasurer and collector of taxes is the convert from the elected to the appointed. And so that's the only reason that is there.
But we don't have an elected treasurer right now. We have a hired treasurer, and my question is, what is the treasurer hired under?
Isn't this put in the M schedule?
Yes, so the current treasurer, so the treasurer collector needs to be put on the M schedule.
Right.
One of the challenges we had was the position of treasurer, and also the position of clerk, being historically elected positions, aren't M scheduled employees. So when the incumbent was hired, the town negotiated a salary and agreement with that employee, knowing that they were not currently on the M schedule, and then would subsequently have to be put onto it.
There you go. Does that make
But-
sense?
Yeah, but it doesn't tell me how they are hired. What are they?
So
Well,
what
in
Doug
other
Heim
words-
did was when we did the hiring of the permanent treasurer collector, we defaulted to a state statute that said when an elected office was vacated by the office holder, that the Board of Selectmen could, as the appointing authority, hire the position. So the current treasurer is an appointment of the
That was my question.
select board, similar, let's say, how the town manager is, and then it will be moved, the position will be moved to the M schedule.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so are there any other questions under this article? Okay, which article is this, by the way?
I'm sharing.
Oh, 55.
So I move that for Article 55, we insert the amount 11,360 as the funding amount.
Okay. And you're going to correct controller to development office
Yes,
under B.
yes, yep.
And you're going to refine the exact title under F, or the classification.
It actually is A, we just checked it.
It is A.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, favorable action, unanimous.
Thank you.
325. Okay, I'd like to just go through this grant. I'm sorry?
Deputy Town Manager leave?
Do you need the deputy town manager anymore?
No, I actually corrected the numbers for you.
Okay, and what I'd like you to tell the manager is that the finance committee has authorized overtime pay for you.
I'm sure I'll get my usual rate. Thank you very much. It's been a
Okay,
pleasure.
thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Okay, Article 61 is sewer. That is how much?
Was 800 borrowing, 100 from retained earnings, total of 900,000.
Okay, 800, and then 100 from retained earnings.
900,000, yes.
Total 900. Okay, these are the, as I've said many times, this is where the NWRA overcharges us and then loans the money back to us for free. So is that your recommendation, 800,000 borrowed, 100,000 from retained earnings?
That's the recommendation.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, motion's been made and seconded for favorable action for those two amounts. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. 325. Okay, under water, the amounts, how much?
The 100,000 from retained earnings, 1.2 graciously loaned from the MWRA for a total of 1.3 million, and we're not going to tap into that Gloucester Street artesian well this year.
Could be going down your sewer.
Okay, Dean?
No, I'm stretching.
Oh, the stretch. Okay. Okay, so is that your motion?
That is my motion. yes.
Second. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, motion's been made and seconded for $1,003,000 from those two sources. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, 325. Arts and culture, we have done. We've done all those. I don't know if we've ever voted on the indemnification of medical costs.
We have, this is the 25 year.
No, this is the 10,008. This is the fire and police, who, after they use their own insurance, they get basically a workman's comp type of fees. Well, the amount that I've been given is $10,821. This is the amount we appropriate every year. Police and fire, because they don't qualify for the other source of workman's comp, they have to go to their own insurance. These are retired. They go to their own insurance. Once they exhaust those, they put in bills to the town. This is the money that the town pays on it. So this is actually for last year. Any questions?
So moved.
Okay, second.
10,821. What number is this?
$10,821 under Article 66. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? 25. Water bodies. Done that. We've done 71. Now, okay, we'll do that.
We did Article 7.
Okay, budgets. Now, okay, so we've done Finance Committee, we've done Selectmen, Manager, Human Resources.
We haven't done.
Okay, that's 31.
And I move that we.
Peter, I'm hoping you're correcting me as I go along.
That we accept the budget as indicated is a total of 363,240, but with the offset, it comes to 346,440.
I assume the offset's water and sewer, yeah, it is, okay. Okay, so $346,440. Any questions?
Wait a second. Second.
Oh, okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? 25. IT, have we voted that?
Nope. And I recommend we accept it as indicated, which is after offsets of 910,462.
Second.
Okay, Alan?
Wait, that's
Except
one of the
that
ones
now-
that,
yes,
that's
except
one of the
now
ones that was
is one of
corrected.
the ones that there's a correction. So,
That slide up there was 91503.
yeah, so that is Lambridge. See Sandy for the new number.
So what was the final number, Alan?
Whoa,
910,503. 910,503.
910-503. 503?
Yep.
Okay.
so the person's salary came down.
That's what he said. We gained 15,000.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you
Well,
hand out
well,
new
it-
budgets on these?
No, sorry.
Okay, so they would be in Sandy's
Yeah,
email.
right.
Yeah, if it's complicated, I can put them.
And-
Actually, the budget increased $41. According to Cindy.
Can we vote the higher amount and the rest will end up in,
Well, okay, let me just read it off. He's got 699,665 for personnel,
I'm sorry, 6?
699,665.
Yeah, so there's your $41.
That's the $41.
yeah.
And then 409,853, and an offset of 199,015. So the personnel's up $41.
Yep.
So it's 910-503, and the increase is up in the personnel.
Mr. Chairman.
Charlie?
So, on this budget, I think at a previous meeting, John asked a question about an email system and also about integrating the GIS system with Q&A applications and some other things in town. Is that correct?
Yes.
I did ask that. I'm
did
so
ask
curious
that.
about that, yeah.
So the answer is that the town is migrating to Microsoft Office 365, which should be cloud-based. It's going to be the IT department and some of the departments are moving around because of the high school project, et cetera. So this is all sort of happening in a phase with the migration of various departments. Okay, I can't give you the specifics, but that's happening. With respect to the GIS system and the ability to, I think somebody was talking about a skunk in a graveyard or, finding a tree that has a crack in it or something like that. This is actually a level more complicated. There are some, let me call them, extensions of the GIS system that can allow you to do that, but it just can't happen automatically. It means that the web QA system has to be upgraded, and they are looking at that. So it's not a fait accompli.
So the $10,000 in your capital plan was for looking at that?
I don't remember.
Not unless you just added it in.
No, it was for the,
In the capital
I
plan.
think it was for the web QA, if my memory serves me right.
My suspicion is they're trying to find a new system.
Yeah. Well, maybe a new system or, yeah, I guess it
Yeah,
would be an
they
upgrade
talked-
or a new
talked about
system.
Just say they're looking for feature improvement, shall we say.
Yeah.
So, and regarding the 360 email thing, what Sandy had said previously was that right now their big focus is rolling out the voicemail, and they've got their 22 buildings to do that.
Yeah.
And then he said he thought, well, we already approved the money to go to an email system that's somewhat more secure than calling up somebody and telling them your password. That would be done after we finish the voicemail.
I don't
Is that-
remember the
does that-
comment about calling somebody up with the password. What is that about?
When we got our finance committee email addresses, in order to confirm our password, we had to call someone in the IT department, tell them what we wanted it to be, they set it up, and then we could log in. This is not what you would call secure. Office 365 will solve this.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
So that's to be implemented this year, Office 365.
I don't think it'll be all implemented this year.
Since we're talking about passwords and our emails, I just remind everybody that as town officials, we are supposed to preserve our emails on town business. So figure out a system. What I do whenever I send it out is I use my town email as a CC. So then it just goes right into the town email and maintains that. Otherwise, I just drag it and kick it into Town Save. But just a reminder. Okay, back to controller. Any other questions?
Information IT, we're on IT.
Oh, sorry, IT. Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded for $910,503. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 25. Now, let me get a handle on what's more to do. Okay, so we just did IT and that. We have the treasurer's budget to do? Who's doing that? Or have we done it already?
Bill or Brian, or we might have done it. We did that already.
Okay, how about postage is done?
Yes.
Yep.
Assessors,
Done.
Done.
legal,
Done.
clerk, registrar,
Parking.
parking we've done, planning and community redevelopment board, zoning, public works, facilities, police, fire inspections, library.
Did we do planning and community redevelopment boards? We did all those?
Yep. Okay, health and human services, we've done all that. Okay, so we still have retirement.
Yeah,
We still have insurance and the reserve fund.
and comptroller, we haven't done comptroller.
In the enterprise.
And sewer and water.
Wait a minute. Didn't we just do controller and IT?
No, we did IT.
You did IT, but not controller. I'm sorry.
This is why we
Do you
had
have an
Mary
approach
Rose.
avoidance problem?
I know. What I'm trying to decide, which one's controllers? Right at
Yes, we also-
39.
We did overhead, but we didn't do retirement. Yes.
We have one of them.
We already suspended the rules.
Okay, the controller. Let's get the controllers done.
Okay, so the controller numbers are different. So if you go to page 40, and you look at 2020 budget, the top number is 330055. So it went up 10,000, well, 1,000.
So what was the number again, please?
So 330055.
Okay, so that went up about 10.
Right. And then if you come down to comptroller salaries, that total number is 342,941.
Okay.
We're minusing the 78. If you look at the middle of the numbers, the audit report is under comptroller expenses, we're taking that out. Which brings the number under comptroller's expenses to 27,600. Which brings the comptroller's appropriation total, which at the moment looks like it's 447, it's going to be 370,541. And then the bottom number after offsets is 298,723.
298723.
Right, and that's what we're voting.
Yeah, and Alan, don't forget to take that whole row and put it back in the selectman's office.
Hey, Carl, that doesn't seem to agree with,
Yeah, no,
No. On,
coolers.
That's not working there.
Okay, let me do the math and see.
340598 was the appropriation.
So the bottom line should be reduced by 68 or so.
Alright, let me do some math.
It's number right on the Sandy sheet.
Oh, yeah, Al, if you look at Sandy's sheet, does that help?
Yes, 340598 is, so personnel 342,941,
Yeah,
expenses 27,600,
yeah.
So that's a total of 370,541, which I think you had. Offset of 29,943.
Yeah.
And he's got the taxation total 340,598.
598. Okay.
Unless the arithmetic's wrong.
Yeah.
340.
598.
That seems right. Okay, sorry about that.
So 340,598, that's your recommendation?
Yes, that's my recommendation. I move that we accept that budget.
Second.
Okay, so that includes the change in the controller's salary and the two changes that were carried over from the last year's pay and classification change. Okay. Includes taking the audit and putting it back in the selectmen. 340,598. Any questions?
In the select board.
Select board. I got to catch myself on that a lot.
You've got to catch yourself.
Why telephone expenses go from 50,000 to 0 and other purchases go from 50 to $350?
Okay, John, could you speak up a little bit, please?
Telephone expenses going to 0 from $50,000 a couple years ago, and purchase services going from $50,000 to $350 a couple years ago.
So-
Elimination of slush fund.
So the
No,
phone,
seriously.
the phone switched from the comptroller to IT because IT is now responsible for. Why it was in comptroller is a long archival historical story, you don't need to go there. And then where are you looking?
Other purchase services, same kind of story.
Services. Yeah, God only knows what it used to be for, but the last comptroller changed that significantly, and she's going with it as well. She's just following his lead.
Probably some of that went with the telephone also.
It might have been
With
that.
Munis.
So we don't let them Munis upgrade
Oh, right.
funds.
Yeah.
Because they didn't need to use anymore.
Right.
There's another, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, John?
There's another issue that the controller pointed out, which is that there are, in many departments, office supplies and other supplies and other this, other that. And she is reorganizing the chart of accounts for the Munis system, and we should have better clarity of that. And she's trying to get the people to, the department managers to charge their expenses into the right account, which doesn't always happen.
All accounting departments should ban the words other and miscellaneous.
Any other questions? Okay, motion's been made and seconded for 340,598. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, favorable action, unanimous. Now,
Retirement?
despite, no,
It's too
Going in order.
it's too tired. My understanding is we have retirement, insurance, reserve fund, and water and sewer. Okay, I think we could do those on Wednesday. Now, Wednesday, the first group up is the Commission on Disability. They're looking for an additional appropriation of $25,000. I sent you the email today. I forwarded that. So look over those forms. I'm not sure if that's in addition to the $3,000 that's already in there that we voted, or whether we placed the 325 with the 3, or the 3 with the 25. So we'll have that. Secondly, Dan Dunn's going to come and explain the whole override and how all that fits together. Third, I should have a memo from the superintendent requesting the 450,000 and change be added to the school budget to bring it up to the 50% reimbursement, in line with what was decided by the Finance Committee last week and the Long Range Planning Committee. Get those three things done, run the budgets. I'm going to send the Finance Committee report to Peter and Liz. I ask if you could tomorrow please go through and see if you know, everything is done. I'll try to update it a little bit tonight and then send it out. So I might not have everything we did tonight on there. And hopefully we can finish up Wednesday night. I'll be then sending out the Finance Committee report for everybody to review. I might not, ignore my chairman's report, chairperson's report. That's in italics, I haven't touched it. Also, there are going to be a couple comments that we will not, that I haven't put in yet. Alan will be sending all the budgets to you by the end of this week, maybe Wednesday. You need to review your own budgets and review the footnotes, review the personnel. You know, so sometimes it should be going from 2 part-time to 1 part-time. And if you look across the numbers, you can see where something like that has to change. Look at the footnote. Sometimes the footnote is obsolete. We should have got rid of it 2 years ago. So we try to catch all that type of stuff. And we need
check
those.
fiscal year, look for 2019 where it should be 2020, stuff like that.
Yeah. So, and please get those, any comments back to Alan or myself, let's say within the week. Okay? Any other business before the committee? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.